my width and height and resolution. So I'm making this 30 pixels by 30 pixels because that's what I made my other one at 72. So if I go ahead and hit return twice, it will size that for me. And in this instance, I want to go ahead and change this to a different color. Now, ultimately, I would pay attention to the color I made this previously, because right now I don't remember what that blue color was that I made it. So now that's going to be a little bit challenging to get it to match up. So what I would say is that when you start modifying the color of these, you need to make a note of what these values are so you can make them all the same color, right? All right, so let's just say, I'm not even going to get even close to this probably. Maybe somewhere in there, I'm guessing. I'm not sure. All right, so boom, there's that. So now, File, Save As. I'm just going to call this TW to keep it simple. And I'm going to make sure I save it into my website folder, into my images.
What happens if you save it as a web?
Actually, I'm sorry. I needed to go Save for Web.
Oh.
My mistake. So Save for Web, I want to make sure that I also change it to a PNG 24. And then save it into my folder. And actually, I think this will be my RO, not my black one, because they start off with black. So again, make sure you understand the system that you're doing. So yeah, in this instance, I can see that my static image will be black, and my colored one will be my rollover. So I would call that my RO. They're RGB. Yep. So now in this instance, let me go back into my human saturation. Let me go ahead and drop the darkness on this. If I can get that back to black, or actually the easiest way to do that would be take out the color. So if I desaturate that and then come into my levels and then just make that all the way black, like so. So then again, do my Save for Web, PNG 24, save, and this will be the one that I just called TW. Alright, so now that I have that done, let's come back here into Dreamweaver. Now here's where I have to pay attention in my code, right? So here in my code, here's where my Facebook link starts, and then again, this thing with the little /, that is the close tag of the link, right? So after this, right in between here, this is where I would go ahead and insert my next rollover image for my Twitter. http://www.twitter.com, and I think this is what mine is. I don't know. I don't Twitter a lot, but I think that's what it is. Okay, so let's drop that in. Boom, and so there you see that they're existing side by side. Okay. Now, what if I want a little space in between them?
Yeah, what if you want them below each other?
Yeah. Well, so if I want them below each other, one of the things I might have to do is change the width of my header right so that it only will allow for this much space so that they'll stack on top of each other, right? So in this instance, if I go back to header right, and let's see, I factor in I have 20 pixels of padding on the right. Each one of these guys is 30, so if I go ahead and make this 10? Nope, wrong one. My bad. Let's make this one, let's try 50 first. There we go. And so now they're stacking on top of each other, because if I just made the box smaller, then they can't live side by side. They have to live on top of each other. Okay? Now, one of the things I can do is I can create what's called a class, right? So before we were talking about div tags, and as an ID, it's something that exists only one time, right? Now, a class is a rule that you can make that either applies to a box or just applies to any object, and multiple objects. So in this instance, I would want to make a class, which is kind of what we see right down here, right? This is where I would apply that. to be able to push these guys away from each other. So in this instance, what I want to do is I'm going to come and make a new selector. And I'm just going to call this dot. We'll do bottom. And it doesn't matter what you call it. I can call it Scooby-Doo 10. So long as I know Scooby-Doo 10 is bottom margin of 10 pixels. Okay? So I'm just going to call it bottom margin 10. And then come here to my bottom margin. Actually give it the parameter that I've called it. And now if I come and grab this little Facebook logo and now I apply the class of bottom margin 10 onto that, it should push down my little Twitter icon. Okay? So a class is just a rule. A class is just a selector. Right? Remember, all these things over here in the pink, they're just rules. They're just something that tells how something needs to react. Right? And so all of these with the little hashtag, those are just things that appear once. But a class starts off with a period. This is something that I can apply to multiple things, right? So if I wanted to make a smaller little logo underneath that and do that again, then I would select this one and put in the class of, more margin spacing and put in another one below that, right? So at this point, let's save it, preview it, and we should see that both of these guys roll over. Now there is some spacing issue, because you see how my border doesn't go all the way up and around right here? So it's probably because the size of my header, remember when I added the border onto my wrapper and I had to take away the size from that? Well, guess what? My header is still 960. I need to make it 958. And so hopefully that will correct that little visual problem that we were having previously. And it did. So now I see that border right there again. Okay? So there's a lot of moving parts to this, right? There's a lot going on. Now, you can be as ambitious as you want to be in doing this, or keep it as simple as you possibly can. But keep in mind, if you go the simple route, I still want it to be very clean and not have a whole lot of negative space. You need to be able to fill the space in a very well-organized manner. Okay?
If you have, let's say, a line of the social media icons, and I know you were just talking about the class, do you select all of them in the coding section and then go to the what? Oh.
The little class and apply?
Yeah, the class.
You got to do it one at a time.
One at a time. Okay.
Yep, you can't select all. You got to do it one at a time.
Got it.
All right?
Oh, I have another question. Font. We just typed in our font.